Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and that's now open to public. A special gallery cataloguing the life and achievements of Prime Minister Narendra Modi during his 10-year tenure has been inaugurated by President Draupadi Murmu. The gallery will be open to public from the 16th of January. The Modi Gallery focuses on Prime Minister Narendra Modi's early life, entry into politics, role as Gujarat Chief Minister that shaped his leadership and vision at the national level. The gallery, divided on 8 to 9 segments, focuses on Prime Minister Modi's style of governance, his pro-poor policies, steps taken for women empowerment, and so much more. The Modi Gallery also will host key achievements boasted under the Modi government or by this government, including the construction of a Bhavya Ram Mandir for Ramlala Virajman, the Ujjwala scheme, the abrogation of Article 370, the Unified Payments Interface or UPI, and its success. India now sees, meanwhile, as we speak about the success of the UPI scheme, there is also the pro-Modi policy or the pro-poor policies of the Modi Sarkar. This is the latest data. There is a steep decline in poverty over the last 9 years under this current government, under the leadership of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Nearly 25 crore people, 25 crore Bharatiya have escaped multi-dimensional poverty in the last 9 years. That's what the report suggests. Poverty headcount ratio from 29.17% in 2013-14 is at 11.28% in 2022-23, and all the 12 MPI indicators show significant signs of improvement. Uttar Pradesh, Bihar and Madhya Pradesh have recorded the largest decline in the number of MPI poor between 2013-14 and 2022-23. Meanwhile, the industry body ICEA has revealed that electronics exports from Bharat to the US have jumped over twofold year on year to $6.6 billion. That's approximately 253% during the Jan-September 2023 period. The ICEA data reveals that bilateral electronics trade between Bharat and the United States has also seen an impressive rise of 84%. Experts are also citing that FDI is expected to rise in 2024, driven by healthy macroeconomic indicators and production-linked incentive schemes in Bharat, and our robust economic growth and investor-friendly policies have been credited for drawing foreign investments. Growth trajectories on the right path despite global challenges. Talking about global challenges, that sets up discussion number 1 on the right stand. And these are comments made by the Maldives president soon after he has inked nearly 20 agreements with Beijing. Have they really now fallen bait and into the PLA-CCP debt trap? Well, let's try and understand this, ladies and gentlemen. Bharat and Maldives are in a diplomatic tussle which seems far from getting over, and Bharat's neighbor, which has been chattering about quite a bit, seems to be taking advantage of this meltdown. We are talking about the CCP-led China. Maldives President Mohamed Muizzu took an indirect jibe at Bharat while addressing a press conference after wrapping up his 5-day visit to China. Muizzu said that Maldives may be small, but this doesn't give them the license to bully them, or any nation the license to bully them. Muizzu further added that Maldives is not anyone's backyard but an independent and sovereign state. He has now formally asked Bharat to withdraw its military personnel from the island nation and set 15th March as a deadline. Now, here is the details of the number of troops who are in Maldives, Bharatiyas. 88 unarmed personnel stationed in Maldives. Troops comprising of military engineers, trainers, pilots, providing support for equipment provided by Delhi, 2 Dhruv helicopters, a Dornier leased by New Delhi. Troops training Maldives National Defence Force personnel, Indian troops assisting in humanitarian activities in the region. Now, this latest statement by President Muizzu comes after his recent visit to China, and during the visit, the two nations have signed 20 key agreements, including one on tourism cooperation. The two nations have agreed to elevate strategic cooperation and vow for greater cooperation on the Belt and Road Initiative, BRI. That's the larger question, ladies and gentlemen, that it prompts. Has Maldives now just become a mere proxy, a vassal state of Beijing? Have they totally fallen into the clutches of China's debt trap, the CCP's debt trap? This is the reason we ask that. Have a look at these numbers. Chinese banks hold over 60% of Maldives' sovereign debt. As many as 10 islands in Maldives have been leased to China, to the PLA. China wants to dock research survey vessel in Maldives. Free trade agreement to be ratified between the two nations, and one only knows other nations how they have suffered with these FTAs with the CCP. Muizzu's election campaign was openly anti-India, pro-China, pro-CCP. How much of a problem is this strategically for Bharat? Should we be really concerned with the CCP amping up its OBOR and BRI initiatives, especially the string of pearls that forms part of its Belt and Road initiative? Former diplomat Pawan Verma ji is with us. Abhijit Iyer Mitra, Senior Fellow, Institute of Peace and Conflict Studies. Kamru Chaudhary, Political Analyst, with us. Namaste and Jai Hind to everybody. Thank you very much. Pawan Verma ji, starting with you, sir. We have studied this region. We know the compulsions. We know what the dragon wants to do. Many critics believe that Bharat got it wrong with its posture against Maldives.
I don't see what posture that India had which could possibly go wrong. I think by and large we have been a good neighbor. And the one thing we must understand is not to overreact to a transient situation. You know, there is an old Chinese saying, since we were talking about China. Why do you hate me? I have not helped you. Now, this is a syndrome that often kicks in with a big neighbor and smaller neighbors. So, it's not only with Maldives. We've had tensions in the past with Nepal, for instance. We've had tensions with Sri Lanka. It happens because these countries have a sense of dependence on a larger neighbor, which could be an entirely benevolent relationship, but that also breeds a sense of perhaps resentment, and sometimes our foreign policy, Anand, is overbearing and a bit intrusive, as has happened in the past in Nepal. But with Maldives, I remember I went as a diplomat, young diplomat, in 1988 to Maldives, just after India had defeated the coup against the then President Gayoom. And it was codenamed Operation Cactus. India came to the rescue of Maldives. When Maldives, which is a tourist destination, ran out of drinking water, it was India which sent ships of bottled water, sent ships with desalination plants to provide potable water. Because don't forget, Maldives and India share a common maritime boundary. Minicoy, which is our last island, is but a few kilometers away from Maldives.
Yes.
So the Indian films are popular there. Maldives students study here, and there are major projects in which we are involved.
But the Maldivians don't seem to care.
Competition with China.
They don't seem to care.
So I'm coming to that. Just
54% vote share for President Muizzu.
Just 30 seconds more. No, 30 seconds more. And we are building that sea lane highway connecting 3 islands. We have given much in grant concessional aid to Maldives. Now, here is the situation where a president is elected who comes to power on an anti-India stand. India out. Fine. The first thing we should do is to be firm where they cross the line, like when some ministers called on social media the Prime Minister as a clown. We take a firm stand. We take a firm stand because he's the Prime Minister of our country and people in government cannot abuse or insult him.
Right.
Secondly, we don't overreact. We wait because the Chinese relationship with Maldives is full of pitfalls. It's called the China syndrome. You mentioned it, 70% of Maldives' external debt is owed to China. It's a familiar scenario across Africa and even in Pakistan, where the Belt and Road Initiative is unfolding.
Right.
So the Maldivians already have an opposing force to the current position. The opposition is the tourism industry is. We are the largest number of tourists going to Maldives, high net worth individuals.
Right.
So each countries take a little time to understand where their real interests are. The important point is not to overreact but to be firm and to allow the situation to play itself out.
Well, the situation is playing itself out with to a level where there is a serious strategic concern for us. Kamru Chaudhary, where do you stand on this before I bring in Abhijit Iyer Mitra?
Yeah, Anand, basically I am not here as an advocate of Maldives, nor do I support any of their statements that have been viral on the social media.
Ji.
But here I reserve my right to criticize my own government, which has committed in foreign affairs or an external foreign policy harakiri over the entire Maldives and Lakshadweep episode. So basically we are turning out a friendly nation, turning it to be an enemy of the country and pushing it more closer to the Chinese. What economy wise Maldives is going to lose or gain is a different question and does not bother my 4 trillion economy of India.
Right.
Their economy is hardly, I believe it is around $6 to $7 billion, and their external debt to China is around $1.37 billion.
Right.
So it does not concern me whether Maldives is a successful nation as an economy or not. But here what as an Indian, we must be well aware that Maldives is strategically located near the crucial sea roads, essential for China's energy as well as India's energy. Which has resulted in China persistently utilizing its economic resources to enhance its sway over the Maldivian government. Now, when will our government realize this? Why did not the government of India or the External Affairs Ministry or the Home Ministry stop those motor mouth social media trolls from bringing Maldives and India relation to such a state that we are in today? What are the steps being taken on an immediate basis that India and Maldives resume their own friendly relations out here? On one phone call, Rajiv Gandhi sent India's troops to Maldives. As my Pawan Verma ji already has listed out all the details where India had helped Maldives. Now, as a smaller nation surrounding India, this should be treated as part of India's most friendly neighbors, not alienate them. Once you alienate these sovereign nations, they will get back to our enemies.
But Kamru Chaudhary, I can shake hands with you only if you want to shake hands with me. Now, if I reach out and put my hand out and what you do is turn around and stab me in the back, then what does one say? Fact is, you remembered Rajiv Gandhi, but you forgot that it was under Prime Minister Narendra Modi's leadership that drinking water was supplied, or that COVID vaccines were given to them, or that at a time of difficulty, India stepped up and bailed them out. These projects of interlinking the islands have also been initiated over the last 9 years. Training of their defense police personnel, all of this has been done. नहीं, कोई आपके लिए अच्छा कर रहा है, पर आप फिर भी आप किसी और के साथ दोस्ती करो या बुरा चाहो, तो what can this person do? Continue to play good or turn around and say enough is enough? Now, I'm just asking you this. Is it lost on you? What
raised with the government?
No, the question to
these questions, you are very pertinent questions. These questions need to be asked with the government of India.
These questions.
Same case with
see, this is where.
Let me finish.
No, Kamruji, this is where things get complicated for us, because should we continue to be our inherent nature that we will continue to play big brother to all the nations around us without wanting to exact our pound of flesh and continue to suffer for this kind of a strategy? Because otherwise you have to resort to the same wolf warrior diplomacy that the CCP is resorting to.
Anand ji bhai, I am very sorry, I differ on this, because we cannot play a big bully to our smaller neighbors around us.
Correct.
Bhutan has turned its back, Nepal is showing its eyes to us, leave aside the Pakistan, whatever it is. There are smaller countries where China has already made its bases. It has surrounded Indian peninsula rather. Anand, when are we going to
No, but that's what I'm trying to say. So who's being
the Chinese?
No, please understand. Yes, there is one aspect of a aggressive posture in defense. But China is doing it with its intent of expansionism. It is going out and buying out smaller vulnerable countries, ensnaring them in the debt trap. But I can take a horse to the water, I cannot make it drink. Is President Muizzu unaware of what's happening in Sri Lanka, what's happening in Djibouti, what's happened with Nepal and with this? He knows what is. The Maldivians wanted India out. They are saying we want the dragon in. Now if somebody is wanting to enter, let the dragon enter their own house and burn it down. What do we do? Yes, the strategic concern, you had a fair point, Abhijit Iyer Mitra. Now, given the strategic concerns that we have, should we have been more aggressive in our posture? When an India out kind of campaign was being run, should we have intervened? Should we have flexed our muscle, made them remember who gave them their vaccines, who gave them drinking water?
Anand, gratitude is the heaviest burden to carry. Foisting this feeling of gratitude on neighbors never works. This former president of Mexico, Benito Juarez, used to say that Mexico's greatest tragedy was that it was so far from America, so far from God and so close to America. So, all these little countries, they've always had problems with India. Kamru, my dear friend, is talking about Rajiv Gandhi and how brave his policy was. We have 1,200 body bags of IPKF soldiers that came back in that period. It was in the same period of Congress rule till 2014 that the Hambantota port, because nobody wanted to pay any attention to it, was built much closer to us. Maldives is not strategic. Please, let's remember that. Let's also not forget the blockade on Nepal that Rajiv Gandhi imposed. What does Kamru want us to do? Go there and regime change the government? In this day and age, in the 80s that was possible. In this day and age, you can't do regime change. Do you also want to do regime change after what you've seen in Iraq and Libya? Number one. Number two, there is this notion floated that Maldives is somehow very strategic. The thing has changed, has made Maldives kind of strategically irrelevant in a sense. See, Reunion might be strategically relevant for France because it doesn't have any through ports. But China has Gwadar, it has Hambantota and it has Djibouti, which makes Maldives entirely irrelevant in that equation. You understand? And Maldives, the atolls are very shallow. Hambantota is a deep water port. It brings a completely different set of capabilities out there. So this notion of Maldives being strategic, again, I reject it. The thing is, you see, Maldives going down actually has a very big impact on us because it helps them bring them back to the fold. You see, Bangladesh at one point of time used to be chronically anti-India.
Correct.
But ever since Sheikh Hasina's got them onto the path of economic progress, they've stopped being anti-India. Sri Lanka, ever since their collapse happened, they've stopped being anti-India. Maldives needs, I wish, my old boss C. Raja Mohan always used to say, I wish China upon my worst enemies. So I really wish China upon Mohamed Muizzu because they are walking into a debt trap. And Muizzu will make a clear profit out of it. He'll get his commission and things like that. But none of China's projects anywhere have been economically sustainable. This is going to go down a huge debt trap route. Remember, Muizzu has also said he's going to diversify healthcare from India to UAE and Thailand. Has anybody been to a hospital in Thailand and UAE and checked the prices last? Has anybody checked the prices of generic drugs that India produces and even China produces? He's going to end up spending 16, 17 times the amount on all diversification programs, money that he does not have, which is going to be bankrupt. And unlike the previous century where when you went bankrupt, you got occupied by the power that you've defaulted to, here power won't come in. Argentina has been in default. Nobody's ever been able to enforce anything against Argentina, you see. Sri Lanka on default, which of their assets have been seized internationally.
Anand, can I come in?
Amru, sorry, I haven't interrupted you. Please let me finish. These notions, we're still belaboring under these 1980s and forget 1980s. We're belaboring under 1880s notions. Let the Maldives go under. Kuch nahi hota hai hamara. Short-term loss, yes, there will be some short-term loss. There will be some more increased Chinese patrols. Long-term, it's very good for us. I have no fear about this.
Yes, Kamru Chaudhary, and then I'll go back to Pawan Verma.
No, basically what Mr. Iyer is suggesting out here, there cannot be any comparison. The attitude simply that Mr. Iyer has is the same as the social media trolls like Mr. Sinha, who started a Twitter war on basically bullying a smaller country like this. On my part, I believe that we should not be bullying all those countries. However, they may be errant in their foreign policy, but it's a time that India plays a bigger brother, handhold these younger countries and take them along. But what we have done out here by criticizing, by not stopping those social media trolls, the Maldives has grown closer to our enemy country, China. That's what there cannot be any
but you
comparison.
are
Maldives has
already.
let me finish.
Kamru
Okay.
just called Rajiv Gandhi a social media troll.
Let me finish.
A Congress spokesperson. Good.
Let me finish, please. There cannot be any comparison economy wise, but still then India stands at 143rd out of the 195 countries in GDP per capita ratio of 2000 US dollars, whereas Maldives has got a 11,000 GDP per capita income ratio. So there cannot be this thing comparison on the basis of the economy size, rather how prosperous the people of Maldives are. No doubt they are dependent on the tourism industry at that say. But then what China has done out here, they have already encircled. That's my only issue out here. Our foreign policy should have been proactive rather than reactive on Maldives. With a proactive policy, we should have got Maldives according to our likes and dislikes, not that the grandstanding against a smaller country and try to bully it.
Pawan Verma ji, would you want to respond on this, sir?
I fail to understand what it means by proactive. If it is implied that before a president is elected in Maldives whose stance is anti-Indian, India should intervene in the process and thereby consolidate his position further, it's suicidal. One way of dealing with neighbors who can be recalcitrant, because I've already said it's a syndrome that often happens with smaller neighbors
Ji.
and a big neighbor, is to be not impulsively overreacting or to anticipate events in a manner which then become counterproductive. Here is a situation. As pointed out by Abhijit, perhaps Maldives is not as strategic in purely calculating terms, but it is important for us as a country located where is it in our strategic backyard. China's policy of attempting to encircle India with friendly relations with our neighbors is not new to either this regime or the old one.
Ji.
For how long has their footprint been increasing in Nepal? And let me say, if Rajiv Gandhi had the blockade, so did the BJP government after 2013. I raised a short duration discussion which Sushma Swaraj readily accepted on why our policy towards Nepal is wrong as a result of that blockade. So we have to be sensitive but firm. We don't have to be bullies, but we have to be vigilant. And for that, my own feeling is that Muizzu will have sufficient opposition in due course from the citizens of Maldives who will no doubt suffer, because tourism is the mainstay of their economy.
Ji.
I mean, there's no point trying to project Maldives as more developed than us, because on per capita terms, its population of 550,000 earns more. The economy is disproportionately balanced based on tourism. India is a big factor in that. And high net worth individuals for whom Maldives is a neighboring country.
Correct.
So therefore, already the opposition is expressing concern. And already there is the fears being raised in Maldives of a debt trap. Let the situation play out, but I will put one caveat.
Ji.
If China places military installations in Maldives or puts troops rather than the kind of personnel we have in Maldives, it's time to convey an even firmer message that please do not use your territory in terms which can be hostile to India. That is the one caveat I want to make to an otherwise policy of firmness and wait and watch.
But quickly, Abhijit Iyer Mitra, how will we do that? Because like Chinese banks have 60% of their debt. Maldives is quite literally a vassal state. 10 of its islands are leased to the Chinese. So if the Chinese tomorrow decide that they want to act up on their lease and own those islands, how does Maldives stop it?
So Anand, that can't happen anymore. You see, international law has come a long way. This used to be called gunboat diplomacy in the 1800s, you know, when if somebody defaulted or something, you could send the navy in and capture that place and capture trade concessions and things like that. That is now strictly prohibited under international law, number one. And at that point, if the Chinese navy goes in, who exactly is the Maldives going to call on to protect them? So, you know, we actually have very good cause. It's pretty much like Rajiv Gandhi going into Sri Lanka. Remember, we did not go into Sri Lanka without an invitation. President Jayawardene invited us in to sort that problem out in Jaffna in the 1980s. So it is the same, of course, we kind of pressured him a bit to do that. But it will be the same thing in Maldives. You can't, in return for to secure a defaulted loan, you can't go eroding another country's sovereignty. I suspect what's going to happen out here is you'll see a Sri Lanka style collapse where Mr. Muizzu will run with several millions, if not billions, stashed in his bank account. The people of the Maldives, you can't just hold them collectively responsible because everybody gets taken in by demagogues every now and then. There's nothing anyone can do about it.
Right. Thank you. Thank you very much, Kamru Chaudhary, Pawan Verma ji, and also Abhijit Iyer Mitra. Let's see how this all plays out. It's a matter of patience. We need to keep a close eye, watch it with a hawk's eye. If there is a certain level of military intent that's shown by the PLA, we must pull up. Otherwise, Maldives will come around. That's what the experts believe. We're going to take a very, very short break. When we come back, it's an interesting series that we're attempting ahead of Pran Pratishtha, ladies and gentlemen. It's the Ram series, the Ram Mandir series, the first of the conversations around Ram, Bharat and Hindutva, decoding symbolism and significance. Stay with us.
This morning was that an eruption started very close to Grindavik, which is very serious. We have been following the development of the rupture since, and actually the barriers that we have been building, even though they are not finished, we have seen that they are actually providing some protection for the town, so the lava has changed its direction. But then around noon we had a new shock when a fissure opened within the town, and there is lava flowing up from that fissure. Already several houses have gone under lava, so it's a very serious situation we're faced with here right now. The government is meeting tomorrow, and we will decide on continued support for the people of Grindavik, housing support, salary support. We need to put a lot of extra efforts in finding more housing, suitable housing for the people in Grindavik, because many of them are really in unacceptable conditions and have been since November. Even though we have been buying up apartments, we need to do a lot more. We will also provide some support for the companies in Grindavik.
We had this eruption started just before 8 o'clock this morning. It was on the area where we have been expecting it to come, but unfortunately it went a little bit more south than we had hoped for. So it went inside the barriers that we have already built, and then also about 3-4 hours later we had another opening just outside the town of Grindavik. So we have lava both running north of the barriers to the west, which is the best way for it. But we have designed the barriers to work in that way, but also to the south and getting close to the town. And then we had this fissure just outside Grindavik, and we have now lava inside the town, and some houses has burned or be buried under the lava, and it's still going quite strong into the town. So we see that the potential damage will be quite much.
Namaste, Jai Hind, and welcome to this very special presentation under our continuous coverage on Ram Mandir for India. 22nd of January, the Pran Pratishtha of Ram Lala at Ram Lala Virajman will take place. But the conversations are, what does this imply? What does this signify? What does this stand for? Is this a renaissance of Bharat, the Hindu culture, the Hindu way? And how does one answer those who are continuously taking pot shots at the Hindu way of life, be it the Sanatan Dharma or the Hindu religion as a faith or as a way of life, as our courts have ordained? Bharat is Hindu. Ram is integral to Bharat. So Ram, Bharat and Hindutva. Let's try and understand this. This is the first of our many series of conversations, or a mini series of conversations around these issues, and we'll try and bring out certain aspects where there is a lot of misinformation and of course the narrative push that's happening. Joining us now is Swami Vijnananand. He is somebody who's educated in a Gurukul. He's a B.Tech, so he's got a science background, but he's also a Sanskrit Vidwan, understands Vedic Parampara. So he will answer a few questions. कुछ प्रश्न उनसे तो पूछेंगे तो along with a lot of other hats that he wears. But इस discussion में तो यही आपका
ठीक है ना,
परिचय दे रहा हूँ स्वामी जी.
अच्छा है.
Professor Nachiketa Tiwari is a scholar himself. He is teaching at the IIT Kanpur. He quit a fantastic job and a great academic career abroad and has come back to Bharat to do his seva here. Then Dr. Jagmohan ji is a Sanskrit scholar himself. So Sanskritam as a language, will it be revived? He is a professor at Hindu College in Delhi. तो चलिए आप सबसे मेरा पहला प्रश्न यही है कि राम मंदिर की प्राण प्रतिष्ठा को लेकर जो विवाद हो रहा है, यहीं से शुरू करते हैं. कुछ का कहना है कि प्राण प्रतिष्ठा खंडित मंदिर में नहीं होना चाहिए, कुछ का कहना है कि प्राण प्रतिष्ठा पीएम को नहीं करना चाहिए, कुछ का ये कहना है कि विश्व हिंदू परिषद राम तीर्थ ने इसको अपने आप कर लिया है, राम तो सबके हैं, फिर ये इसको क्यों नियंत्रित कर रहे हैं. इन सब का क्या उत्तर है स्वामी जी?
पहले चीज है, देखो एक मूर्ति की प्राण प्रतिष्ठा है ना, मंदिर की प्राण प्रतिष्ठा नहीं है. जब मंदिर पूरा कंप्लीट हो जाएगा तब उसको कलशाभिषेक हम कहते हैं, है ना. और जिसको दक्षिण में उसको कुंभाभिषेक हम कहते हैं ना. अभी तो फर्स्ट बन गया है. जैसे आप देखते होंगे जिसका पास घर नहीं होता है तो पूरा जब घर बन जाएगा, लेकिन फर्स्ट फ्लोर भी बन जाए तो आदमी गृह प्रवेश कर जाता है ना. तो कम से कम फर्स्ट फ्लोर मंदिर का तैयार हो गया तो भगवान राम की मूर्ति की प्राण प्रतिष्ठा है, इसमें कोई विवाद नहीं है। यही आपने देखा होगा कि सोमनाथ में हुआ। सोमनाथ में पूरा मंदिर बनने में तो वर्षों लगा, लेकिन जैसे ही फर्स्ट फ्लोर बन गया तो शिवलिंग की प्राण प्रतिष्ठा हो गई थी।
और राजेंद्र बाबू ने ही
किया था।
हाँ।
और इसमें कोई ऐसा अशास्त्रीय विधि नहीं है, सब शास्त्रीय विधान से हो रहा है। ये जो लोग जो हल्ला गुल्ला कर रहे हैं उनको शास्त्रीय परंपरा का ज्ञान नहीं है। पहली चीज तो ये है, मूर्ति की प्राण प्रतिष्ठा हो रही है। मंदिर जब पूरा बन जाएगा तब कलशाभिषेकम, हम उत्तर भारत में कहते हैं, जिसको दक्षिण भारत में कुंभाभिषेकम हो, वो भी होगा। अभी तो पहला चीज शुरू हुआ, फर्स्ट फ्लोर पर रामलला की मूर्ति की प्राण प्रतिष्ठा होगी, जो नया मूर्ति अभी शिल्पकारों ने तैयार किया है, शिल्पी लोगों ने। और वहां साथ साथ ये जो लोग कहते हैं कि रामलला विराजमान की मूर्ति का, वो भी मूर्ति वहां रखी जाएगी, वो भी मूर्ति वहां रखी जाएगी।
तो एक चर और एक अचर मूर्ति, ऐसा विग्रह,
हाँ, जो चल अचल कहा जाता है कि क्योंकि ये जो फिक्स मूर्ति हो गई तो कहीं जा नहीं सकती। जो भगवान रामलला विराजमान है वहां, वही भी वहां रहेंगे, उनकी भी पूजा होगी। और जब कभी वार्षिकोत्सव होगा, जैसे आपने देखा मंदिरों में नगर दर्शन होता है, वैसा उनको घुमाया जाएगा। तो दोनों की प्राण प्रतिष्ठा वहां पर स्थापना होगी, दोनों का ही आसन रहेगा, और जो नया जो मूर्ति उसका प्राण प्रतिष्ठा होगा। तो ये पहला विषय है। दूसरी चीज है कि लोग बोल रहे हैं कि
शंकराचार्य दूरी बनाए रखे हैं, विश्व हिंदू परिषद घेर लिया है, कुछ लोगों ने इसको पॉलिटिसाइज करके राजनीतिक लाभ उठा रहे हैं।
पहले चीज तो ये कहना समझना चाहिए, जो शंकराचार्य बोल रहे हैं, देखो ये सब शंकराचार्य को कोई कभी भी हिंदू मॉडर्न हिंदू समाज ने कभी एक्सेप्ट नहीं किया। इन जो बोल रहे हैं ना, ये सब शंकराचार्य ने अपने आप को डिस्क्रेडिट कर दिया है। कभी हिंदू मूवमेंट में, कभी हिंदू की रक्षा करने में, समाज की रक्षा में, धर्म रक्षा में इन लोगों ने कोई पार्टिसिपेट नहीं किया। ये तो जो अभियुक्त महेश्वरानंद बात कर रहे हैं, उनके गुरु स्वरूपानंद जो थे, वो तो राम जन्म मूवमेंट का हर समय सबोटेज करते रहे। तो कांग्रेस पार्टी के खास एजेंट रहे हैं, वो तो खुद ही कहते थे, उनके रिप्रेजेंटेटिव, वो तो उनसे कोई दूसरी अपेक्षा नहीं है। मैं निश्चलानंद जी का बता रहा हूँ, तो निश्चलानंद जी घोर कास्टिस्ट व्यक्ति हैं, खुद आप उनसे जाके बात कर लीजिए, आप दूसरों की बात नहीं करें। इसलिए ऐसे लोगों का आज के समय में कोई महत्व नहीं, इन्होंने अपने आप को खुद डिस्क्रेडिट कर दिया है।
बट हिंदुइज्म इजंट इट कास्टिस्ट?
नहीं,
आई एम जस्ट ब्रिंगिंग इन प्रोफेसर नचिकेता जी दैट हिंदुइज्म इज, दे से हिंदुइज्म मींस कास्टिज्म। अब वो SB 403 in the US, that entire thing about ancestral rights and ancestral habits, and that's where they try to say that Hinduism itself is casteist. इसीलिए जो यहाँ से आता है वो दिमागी रूप से ही कास्टिस्ट होता है, इस तरीके से वो कह रहे हैं। तो ऐसा ही है।
तो इसको दो प्रकार से इस प्रश्न को देखना चाहिए। पहला तो कि जो हमारे यहाँ जो लिटरेचर है, हिंदू लिटरेचर, उसमें क्या इस चीज़ को सैंक्शन दिया गया है, और दूसरा समाज में जो है वो कहाँ से आया है। ये दो प्रश्न हैं। तो अगर आप हिंदू साहित्य देखें, हिंदू वाङ्मय देखें, और आप वेदों से शुरू करें, तो वहाँ ये कास्ट टाइप का कोई कॉन्सेप्ट उसमें डजंट कम एट ऑल। It doesn't feature
so Vedas
at all.
don't talk about casteism.
No.
But there is a talk about varna and jati, right?
Yes. In Ved, even this varn in very limited context it appears.
Because Krishna also says chaturvarna maya shrishtham, no?
I will add here. I want to just add here. देखो हमारे यहाँ शास्त्र में बहुत क्लियर है, कहते हैं कि शरीर है ना पंचभूतों से बना हुआ है ना, अग्नि, पृथ्वी, वायु, जल, है ना, आकाश से, 5 तत्वों से बिना। तो सभी का शरीर एक ही चीज है। फिर कहता है सबका आत्मा एक ही है, तो कोई भेद है नहीं हमारे। हमारा इस तरह का कोई कभी भी डिस्क्रिमिनेशन की कोई बात रही नहीं। अब बहुत अच्छा महाभारत में इसका डिस्क्रिप्शन है और डिस्कशन है कि जब ये डिस्कशन होता है तो कहते हैं कि देखो सब लोगों ने अपने अपने समय के अनुसार अपना अपना प्रोफेशन अडॉप्ट किया, है ना।
Correct.
उस प्रोफेशन के साथ साथ ये लोग बन गए। और रही बात मॉडर्न टाइम में, तो देखो आपने देखा थर्स्टन था, अल्बर्ट थर्स्टन, जिन्होंने एक पुस्तक लिख दी कास्ट एंड ट्राइब इन सदर्न इंडिया, और कहीं बिना आउट ऑफ बॉक्स कहीं नोवेयर ही क्रिएटेड 300 कास्ट। वो सब कास्ट को उन्होंने सेंसस में यूज किया जस्ट टू डिवाइड, और तब से सारा नैरेटिव हो गया। पहले तो ऐसी कोई बात नहीं थी।
But there was discrimination, there was a classification. Yeah. So when you say guna karma vibhagasaha chaturvarna maya shrishtham, now is it because in this birth there is discrimination? Is it because you were born in the previous birth that you are being discriminated? How do you understand that? Because his scriptures also say that there will be each person, there is a brahmana, there is a Vaishya, there is a Kshatriya, and there is a Kshudra. So that is because of their pravritti, their karma, or because where they are born.
Okay. So I'll address the other part also जो आप पहले बता रहे थे कि why is there discrimination, and the reason we get bothered so much is because we see that a particular class of persons, very large number of people are in absolute misery, and they have been in this absolute miserable state over last at least 1000 years. How did this emerge? We have to understand that. Unfortunately, our country's intelligentsia has not explored and done research कि इतनी misery जो ये हम untouchability से related है और absolute misery, you will see social indices that scheduled castes on very lower footing, scheduled tribes are in a miserable state. When you go and dig the history, and the truth is not pleasant, so they have not touched it. What you find is that after these Islamic invasions started happening, there was a very big push to proselytize Bharat on the side of Islam. And as per their own principles and practices and their jurisprudence, a Hindu is not entitled to have agricultural land. And this was a way to force people into
Hardship and penury.
Hardship and penury, and so that they ultimately accept Islam. Now and then associated, and it's very well documented by Islamic chroniclers and themselves. So land rights were taken away. Then whatever produce you produced, most of it was taken away. ये ज़मींदारी सिस्टम उसी समय डेवलप हुई. इसके पहले हमारे भारत में ज़मींदारी सिस्टम नहीं था. When you see all these movies which are inspired by a particular leftist thought, this entire ज़मींदारी system, it appeared, and as a consequence of that, rampant poverty developed in Bharat. So you may have heard that Mughals have a lot of splendor. So we had the birth of two big classes. One was absolutely poor people. They used to work very hard, and they used to sustain the splendor and the magnificence of Mughal lords and all that. It is in that context this very large scale misery appeared. And then when the Britishers came, they saw and then they interpreted this that as if it is endemic and it is a feature of the Hindu society. But this was something which was out of persecution of Hindus.
So you're saying that there was...
I will add here on that your point. I was discussing with a retired judge who is from a lower caste, so-called lower caste. He told me, स्वामी जी, गरीबी अपने आप में एक जाति है ना. गरीबी जो है ना, अगर मैं पढ़ लिख करके अमीर हो गया तो मेरा स्टेटस बड़ा हो गया है ना. लेकिन जब मैं गरीब था तो बोलता गरीब कोई भी हो ना, किसी भी जाति को उसकी अपनी अलग ही जाति है. तो ये सारी समस्या की जड़ वहाँ है.
So because Prime Minister नरेंद्र मोदी भी प्रोफेसर जगमोहन कहते हैं कि दो ही जातियां, हैव्स एंड हैव नॉट्स, जो गरीब है और जो गरीब नहीं है, और जो गरीब नहीं है उसको जो गरीब है उसकी मदद करने की आवश्यकता है. इसी स्वरूप में हमें देखने की आवश्यकता है. और ये त्व शब्द को लेकर बहुत खेल खेला. जी. हिंदुइज्म और हिंदुत्व, इन दोनों अलग हैं. ये क्या है, ये इज्म क्या है? यहीं से शुरू करते हैं.
जी देखिए, क्या है कि यदि किसी भी शब्द को पहले आप समझना चाहते हैं तो क्या है कि हम व्याकरण की दृष्टि से, संस्कृत व्याकरण की दृष्टि से यदि बात करें तो हर उसमें एक प्रत्यय शब्द के अंदर जुड़ा हुआ होता है, और वो प्रत्यय कह लीजिए उस शब्द के सही स्वरूप को बताता है. यदि कह लीजिए क्या है कि आप त्व प्रत्यय केवल किसी जाति, किसी शब्द का जो मूल धर्म है, जो मूल उसकी प्रॉपर्टी है, वो उसको बताता है. यदि मान लीजिए हमारे यहाँ पर जो जाति की जैसे बात अभी चल रही थी, तो त्व लगाने पर जिसे क्या कहते हैं, हम कहते हैं संस्कृत में गोत्व, मनुष्यत्व, पशुत्व, ऐसे अनेक प्रकार के हम हर शब्द में त्व प्रत्यय लगा देते हैं. और त्व प्रत्यय जो होता है वह उस व्यक्ति का जो मूल धर्म, मान लीजिए क्या है कि अब यहाँ पर इतने सारे मनुष्य का आपको बोध हो गया, तो जो सबके अंदर एक यूनिटी है, जो सबके अंदर आपको एक जैसा, किसी भी देश का, विदेश का, कहीं का भी पूरे संसार में आपको एक बार नॉलेज हो गया कि ये मनुष्य है, तो एक उसके अंदर ऐसा धर्म है जिसको देखते ही आपके अंदर ये बोध होता है कि अच्छा ये मनुष्य है, ये गाय है, ये वो पशु है. तो ये जो त्व है हमारे यहाँ पर जाति की अवधारणा शास्त्रों में इस रूप में बताई गई थी.
हिंदू अलग और हिंदुत्व अलग हो सकता है क्या?
नहीं, तो हिंदू और हिंदुत्व जो है ये अपने एक अलग नहीं हो सकते हैं.
लेकिन जिसे क्या कहते हैं, लोगों ने उस चीज़ को जिसे क्या कहते हैं कि मिस इंटरप्रिटेशन जिसे कहते हैं, आप उसकी गलत गलत व्याख्याएं लोगों के सामने प्रस्तुत कर दी, जिससे क्या है कि हम जिसे दोनों में भेद समझने लग गए।
तो आपका हिंदुत्व अलग है, मेरा हिंदुइज्म अलग है, ये इसका
I'll explain this a little bit further by elucidating. So there is a word Christian, and the essence of being a Christian is Christianity.
Correct.
Right. So in English there is this suffix ity, which indicates that essence. Likewise, you have a Hindu, and the essence of being a Hindu is Hindutva.
So TVA. So
TVA.
Tat and Tattva, Sat and Sattva, Hindu and Hindutva.
So TVA is equal to ITY in English. It's not
So you're
more
simplifying it like that.
It's very simple and straight. So it's not a very complicated word. It's just that because of political imperatives, we have tried to complicate. But the understanding is very clear if you look at that.
Now we've had
coming back to Hinduism.
Yeah.
Hinduism. This is very important.
This ism. So you're saying TVA is ITY.
Ism.
So what is ISM?
ISM. But before you talk about ISM, you should think that you have Hinduism, Jainism, Buddhism, Shintoism, communism, socialism, capitalism, Judaism. All these have been labeled as isms, except Islam and Christianity. So we have to think why that has happened. Actually, earlier
You can't say Islamism.
You cannot say Islamism. Earlier,
say Islamic.
Here I want to just add to Nachketa. There was a time, 50, 60-year-old literature you study, they used to write Mohammedanism.
Mohammedanism.
Then these people objected, don't write Mohammedanism, we are Islam. And now everybody is forced to use the word Islam. But same thing we have not done with the word Hindu. Nachketa can go
So
on.
coming back, so ism, when you go back and look at the dictionary, it has two connotations. One as a noun, another one as a suffix. If you see it as a noun, then it is a set of beliefs. Most of the times it is a set of beliefs is considered as an ism if it is not logical and it is incoherent, and it is any set of beliefs when it has to be portrayed in a negative way and that it's not going to last for a long time, then it is labeled as ism.
No, but ये तो सनातन है, तो this is Adi to Anand, so how can it be Hindu? It has to be Hindutva.
So this word Hinduism was invented in late 19th century. It has been used in modern context. First time it was used in this present context, in this the way we use it is by Monier Williams. And this gentleman, he invented it, he wrote a monograph on this word Hinduism. And it was a pejorative way of describing the entire set of Hindu thoughts and all that. And we should know this, that it was published by a society known as Society for Promoting Christian Knowledge.
Okay.
And
So
Handbook of Hinduism.
Handbook of Hinduism. And that was what was pushed by a Society for Promoting Christian Knowledge. Okay.
So that provides a context. I mean,
so there could be an inherent prejudice itself in the way it was represented.
Yes, and then actually it was even more mischievous than that, because when you talk about an ism, then one common feature is that it should have a common book, it should have a prophet, a common god, a common set of codes, or belief system. Now, in Hindu dharma, there is nothing like that.
So, Ekam Sat Vipra Bahuda Vadanti is junked altogether.
It's junked altogether. So, he said, what do I do? So, he actually invented two words. The first one was Hinduism, and he said that, all these guys who are following Puran and Puranic practices and who are doing Tika and who are doing this Pran Pratishtha, which we are talking about today, and all these Puranic Hindus, they were said that you guys belong to this Hinduism, followers of Hinduism. And then and this is his imagination. So then there are other set of persons who are Upanishadic, who are more philosophical, who talk about Atma, Paramatma and Adhyatma. And he said that these guys are followers of Brahmanism.
Brahmanism.
So, and then this Brahmanism got later appropriated or misappropriated by their successors, left and all that, and then you have this Brahmanical.
So clearly a Society for Promoting Christian Knowledge pushes these two thoughts about and says, let's divide a stream that is supposed to unite based on this one.
That is correct.
पर हिंदू शब्द, इसका अर्थ हमने इसके पहले इस पर शास्त्रार्थ किया है, आपने बहुत कुछ समझाया है, पर प्रोफेसर साहब से मैं पूछ के फिर आपके पास आता हूँ स्वामी जी, कि हिंदू शब्द की व्याख्या क्या संस्कृत में है, हमारे स्क्रिप्चर्स में है,
देखिए
और किस तरीके से है?
देखिए, जो हिंदू शब्द है, यदि आप पुराने उसमें जाएंगे, जो हमारा लिटरेचर है, उसमें ये आपको शब्द एज इट इज़ तो हिंदू आपको नहीं मिलेगा, लेकिन क्या है कि कहीं ना कहीं जो हमारा जो सिंधु शब्द है, उसी से क्या है कि आपको ये हिंदू, क्योंकि विपर्य कह लीजिए, जैसे हमारे संस्कृत में भी बहुत सारे ऐसे
स कहा
ऐसे मतलब उदाहरण स्वामी जी आपको बताए होंगे बिल्कुल, तो वो होता है। तो ये कहीं ना कहीं उसी से वो बदला। और कह लीजिए पूरे जो आर्यवर्त हम जैसे कहते हैं कि आर्यवर्त हमारा पूरा पुराना नाम था, और उसी के रिप्लेसमेंट में जो कह लीजिए दूसरे लोगों ने, जैसे अब मान लीजिए क्या है कि अब दूसरा वहाँ से मुस्लिम या अरब कंट्री, उन्होंने हमें कहना शुरू किया हिंदू, अल हिंदी से किया, फिर अल हिंदी से होते होते वो हिंदू तक पहुंचा। लेकिन उसका मतलब ये नहीं था कि कोई उनमें वो पूरे उसके लिए जो भी इस हिंदू समाज, इस पूरे कह लीजिए पूरे क्षेत्र में जो लोग भी रहने वाले थे, चाहे उसमें वो जैन हो, बौद्ध हो, सिख हो, वे सभी लोगों के लिए कहीं ना कहीं जो है जो भी रहता था उसके लिए उन्होंने पूरा हिंदू के रूप में यूज किया। उनके मन में ये कोई ऐसा भाव नहीं था कि ऐसे प्रैक्टिस करने वाला या ऐसे करने वाला, क्योंकि उनके अंदर ये भाव, ये तो बाद में सारी चीजें जिससे क्या कहते हैं लोगों ने जबरदस्ती डेवलप की। तो ये इस प्रकार से शब्द का डेवलपमेंट।
तो इसका भौगोलिक व्याकरण या व्याख्या होनी चाहिए या फिर आध्यात्मिक व्याख्या?
क्या होता है, हिंदू शब्द देखो लिंग्विस्टिक में जाओगे तो अनबाउंडेड वर्ड है, उसको आप डिफाइन नहीं कर सकते। तो हिंदू शब्द क्या है, ओरिजिनली स्टार्टेड एज ए ज्योग्राफिकल टर्म है ना। जो क्या आप समझो, मैंने कई बार बताया कि हिंदू का अर्थ है सिंधु नदी है ना, सिंध है, वो नॉर्थ, वो भी कैलाश मानसरोवर के आसपास से निकलता है, नॉर्थ और वेस्ट भारत का सीमा का एरिया बताता है। ब्रह्मपुत्र का नाम भी सिंधु है, वो भी नॉर्थ ईस्ट, और समुद्र को भी सिंधु कहते हैं। तो ऐसा लैंड जो चारों ओर से पानी से घिरा हुआ हो, वो सिंधु से हिंदू बना। मैंने आपको बोला हमारा सिंह को हिंस धातु से सिंह होना, सिंपल तरीके से मैंने बोला था हिंस धातु है, वहां वर्ण भी पर्याय हुआ है, तो स की जगह हुआ, ह की जगह स हुआ, तो वैसे ही सिंधु से हिंदू हुआ है। ये हमारी अपनी भाषा का शब्द है। तो यहाँ से पहले ज्योग्राफिकल टर्म के रूप में यूज हुआ। बाद में जब हिंदू सिविलाइजेशन बढ़ने लगा, तो अब देखो हिंदू साउथ अमेरिका में है, हिस्पैनिक भी है, अफ्रीकन भी हिंदू है, यूरोपियन हिंदू, अब एक्सपैंड कर रहा है मीनिंग, है ना। इसलिए मैं इसको कहता हूँ आप उसको लिमिट नहीं कर सकते, है ना। ज्योग्राफिकल टर्म से अब ये निकल के बाहर आ गया। जैसे आपने देखा होगा, मैं लिंग्विस्टिक में तेल शब्द क्या है, तिल के ही तेल को तेल बोलते हैं, लेकिन आज तेल इतना एक्सपैंड हो गया है, सभी तरह के फ्लूइड, गैसोलीन, पेट्रोल, सब कुछ तेल हो गया है ना। वैसे ही शब्द के मीनिंग नेचुरली एक्सपैंड होते हैं और श्रिंक होते हैं। जैसे आपने एक शब्द है मृग, मृग मैंने डियर बोलते हैं ना, लेकिन मृगेंद्र है तो लायन को बोलते हैं, तो वो मृग का तो राजा नहीं है, किंग, वो तो एक्चुअली किंग ऑफ द बीस्ट है। लेकिन मृग शब्द जो पहले वाइल्ड एनिमल के लिए था, श्रिंक होकर के डियर के रूप में आ गया। वैसे ही तिल का जो था, तिल का तेल था, लेकिन वो एक्सपैंड होकर सभी तरह के फ्लूइड, गैसोलीन, पेट्रोल सबको जाने लगा। वैसे ही हिंदू शब्द क्या है, ओरिजिनली स्टार्टेड ए ज्योग्राफिकल टर्म, लेकिन अब उसके अंदर पूरा जिसको बोलते हैं ना हिंदू धर्म की आत्मा, जिसको कहते हैं एशियन, जिसको वेद, शास्त्र, नास्तिक, आस्तिक, है ना, श्रमण, वैदिक, सभी परंपराओं को समाहित करते हुए थॉट एक्सपैंड कर रहा है।
पर एक चीज ऐड करना चाहूंगा जो स्वामी जी ने बताया कि ये हम सोचते हैं कि ये विश्व हिंदू परिषद है, राष्ट्रीय स्वयंसेवक संघ का डेफिनेशन नहीं है कि हिंदू में सब शामिल होते हैं और जैन, बौद्ध। आपको दो उदाहरण दूंगा। एक पुस्तक लिखी गई जहांगीर के समय, दास्तान-ए मजहब, तो उसमें 12 चैप्टर्स हैं और हर चैप्टर में एक रिलीजियस सिस्टम का इट हैज अ डिस्क्रिप्शन, व्याख्या। आई थिंक इन सेकंड और थर्ड चैप्टर द ऑथर डिस्क्राइब्स इज टाइटल्ड हिंदूज, और हिंदुओं में वो सबको इंक्लूड करते हैं, उसमें शैव, वैष्णव, जैन, बौद्ध, मूर्ति पूजक, तर्किका अर्थात जो तर्क, जो न्याय दर्शन वाले हैं, एंड देन इट्स अ वेरी लॉन्ग लिस्ट, जंगम, योगी,
so everybody is a Hindu,
चंद्र भक्त, पवन भक्त, और अंत में ही इंक्लूड्स नानक पंथी। तो उस समय का जो परिभाषा थी हिंदू शब्द की, this reflects
so दास्तान-ए मजहब during the time of Jahangir, you're saying, तो नानक पंथी are also included as
नानक पंथी। नचकेता you should also emphasize that कि वो कहता है कि ये आपस में डिबेट करते हैं, वो बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट पार्ट है।
दूसरा वो बोलता है कि मैं इन सबको हिंदू क्यों कह रहा हूँ, जो लेखक है उसका ऑथर, why am I calling them Hindus? Then he comes up with a very interesting example or explanation. He says that Hindus have a lot of intellectual differences amongst them. For instance, Brahmins, that is, have significant differences with Jains, and sometimes they do not like each other. He uses the term they cordially hate each other. Cordially hate each other. But he says that despite this dislike, they have been arguing over intellectual differences over last several centuries, actually thousands of years. And they try to sort out everything based on discussions and debates. And then finally he says, but such discussions have not been occurring between Hindus and Muslims because the worldviews are different, the frameworks are different, the terminologies are different. The Hindus have their own intellectual framework and the Muslims have their own framework. And these are incompatible. So these debates between these two groups are not happening.
Not happening. So he said that, which is the second mention you said. दूसरा mention कौन सा है? दो बार
हाँ, दूसरा mention आता है Al-Biruni का. See, these are all not Sanghi persons. So Al-Biruni says,
संघ तो तब था भी नहीं.
Al-Biruni says that Hindus have lots and lots of differences amongst themselves. And then he goes on and explaining that some believe this and others believe this, and some things that the universe is born like this and the others say that universe has been born like that, and so on and so on. But he says, I still call them, all of them Hindus. And then his analysis is that I call all of them as Hindus because they all believe or they all agree with this idea of Punarjan. Which is again, he's correct.
The journey of the Atma continues.
Journey of the Atma continues. So in modern context, 6. Bodh, Jain, Vedic, all these main 4 streams, they
all
abide
believe.
with this.
So anybody who believes in the
एक्चुअली ये फिलोसफिकल स्कूल था ओरिजिनली. देखो हमारे यहाँ क्या है, इसको बोला जाता है दर्शन, है ना, 6 स्कूल. उसमें है मीमांसा, है ना, मीमांसा, न्याय, वैशेषिक, सांख्य, जैन और बौद्ध. ये 6 दर्शन थे जिसको हरिभद्र सूरी ने सबसे पहले सरदर समुच्चय में एक्सप्लेन किया है.
हरिभद्र सूरी जी जैन थे,
जैन स्कॉलर थे. और इस चीज को मैं कई बार लोगों को बताता हूँ कि हमारा कितना बड़ा इंटीग्रेशन इस तरह की चीज़ें का कि मैं पाणिनि का, हम लोग वैयाकरण है, पाणिनि के वैयाकरण के ऊपर सबसे बड़ा कमेंट्री लिखने वाले 2 विद्वान हुए, वामन और जयादित्य. दोनों बौद्ध हैं. बौद्ध हैं. आप उन जिसको काशिका कहते, काशिका वृत्ति, उसके ऊपर फिर कमेंट्री लिखने वाले पर हरदत्त जो है ना, पद्मंजरी कार्य को कहते, पद्मंजरी लिखा हुआ वो हरदत्त है, वो वैदिक विद्वान है. फिर उसके ऊपर फिर कमेंट्री लिखने वाला जिनेंद्र बुद्धि हो, जैन है, न्यासकार जिसको बोलते हैं. तो ये हमारी परंपरा है, नॉलेज की परंपरा, जिसको नचिकेता बोल रहे हैं. आपस में हम खूब हेल्दी तरीके से डिबेट करते रहते हैं, एक दूसरे को इनकॉर्पोरेट करते रहते हैं.
Interesting conversation, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to pause here on this series where we try to understand Ram, Bharat and Hindutva. But is Hindutva also patriarchal? Is it gender biased? That conversation coming up soon. Stay with us. Namaste.
Co-presented by
It's tough in many ways, but I am optimistic by nature, and I try to maintain optimistic. But you know, this is big. This is serious. It's basically as bad as can possibly get. Although it might get even worse. Who knows? So, I mean, I'm born in this town. I actually live in the house that I'm born in, and it's a tough thought to think that this town might be over, and I would have to start all over somewhere else. But if that's the case, then that's exactly what we'll do. We always hope that, you know, the last eruption that was on the 18th of December, that was further away, and that didn't bother us at all. There was nothing to worry about, basically. So we were kind of hoping it would, you know, be coming up there or even further away from us. But the worst case scenario just happened, and that's what we're dealing with.
It's very sad. We grew up there. This is how I miss my
Ollie's coffee shop. I would start the day there where the other brother is running that one, and a lot of good people. It's extremely sad.
It's just unbelievable. And I thought that I would never live to, witness this.
It's been quiet for 800 years.
800 years. But hopefully this will only last for 1 or 2 days, like last eruption. It went up. It was very big.
Good evening, welcome to Brass Tacks. I'm Zaka Jacob. Maldives has now demanded that India withdraw all of its troops from the islands by the 15th of March. India has about 80-odd troops. Most of them are non-weaponized, in a non-combative position. They're largely there for training purposes. They're involved in humanitarian missions, in medical evacuation efforts. This announcement by the Maldives came after President Mohamed Muizzu returned after a state visit to Beijing. It also comes amidst a raging controversy with India over tourism between Maldives and Lakshadweep. But the moot point is this: can the Maldives, in the Indian Ocean region, afford to ignore the biggest country in this region, which is India, and India's interests in the region? How much of this behavior is driven by the need to please Beijing, and how much by domestic political compulsion, because Muizzu is under pressure after his party lost the Malay mayoral elections, and it is due to now fight the parliamentary elections, which are due in April? And how should India respond to this creeping Chinese influence in India's literal sort of backyard, as it were? But first, the story so far. All right, so what exactly is it that Maldives wants? Now, it wants Indian troops who are stationed there and who've been there for the last 30 years plus out. There are 88 unarmed Indian personnel who are stationed in the Maldives. Most of them are involved in humanitarian efforts or in training purposes. Troops comprise of military engineers, trainers, pilots. They also provide support for the equipment that's been provided by New Delhi. Now, what are these military assets that are present there? There are 2 Dhruv advanced light helicopters. There is also a Dornier transport aircraft that's been leased from New Delhi to Malé. The troops basically there train the Maldivian National Defense Force. Indian troops also assist in humanitarian activities in that region. Remember, this is an area that is prone to cyclones and other natural disasters. So the Indian troops are actively involved in humanitarian efforts there. And of course, medical evacuation is a big part of that. Muizzu made this statement right after a 4-day state visit to China last week. This is what he said upon landing in Malé. We have a vast economic zone of 900,000 square kilometers. Maldives with the biggest share of this ocean. He's referring to the Indian Ocean. This ocean does not belong to a specific nation. He was referring, of course, in this case, to India. That the Indian Ocean belongs to all the nations that are situated in that region. Maldives is not in anyone's backyard, because he's trying to speak to a constituency here in India, as well as, of course, more importantly, a domestic constituency, which tends to play on the back of this India is the big boss, the big brother around this region narrative. The Maldives, he says, is an independent and sovereign state, and no country can bully it. Now, the point is this: how much of this is Mr. Muizzu doing to please his masters in Beijing, and how much of this is actually catering to a domestic political constituency, which Mr. Muizzu is really fighting with the previous dispensation of